Welcome to Nikki Speaks TV, the relationship series. The pandemic forced us all to slow down and do an assessment of our relationships. Whether you're dating, engaged, married, or divorced, we'll share tools to help everyone. Join me this season as my guest and I talk about all things relationships. Welcome to Nikki Speaks TV, you guys. I'm so excited that you're here. I have an amazing guest, Michael Payne, and I cannot wait for you to hear what he has to say. Stay tuned. Well, welcome, Lucas. I'm so excited that you're here. Do you go by Lucas Michael or Lucas?
I go by
Michael
Lucas.
Payne?
I did the Lucas Michael Payne thing
I
a
love
long
it.
time ago just because somebody already had my domain.
Okay.
And then there was a wrestler named Lucas Payne.
Okay.
So I was like, well, let me do the full thing, Lucas Michael Payne, so people could find me on social media and all that. But Lucas is fine.
Awesome. My son's name is Michael, so it's an awesome name. But yes, so welcome, and I just want you to take some time and tell the audience who you are, what you do, how you show up in the world.
So my name is Lucas Payne. I am the president of Force Energy Group, and I'm also the founder of Force Energy Group. I also own another company called Force Medical Supply. And just recently, I was able to put an app on the app stores called Hustle app, HSTO, and it's for emerging entrepreneurs to make sure they're tracking their expenses so they can make sure that they're profitable.
Awesome. I love that. So you're well versed in the area of entrepreneurship, sounds like.
I've been at it most of my life. So, I think early on it was by force, kind of fending for myself as a young man. And I had a family very early, or, had my first son very early, and left school and, in order to support him. So, I've been at it pretty much as long as I can remember. Even before that, I was shoveling snow and babysitting as early as 11 years old.
Oh,
so,
wow. Okay, so it was already in you.
It was. Again, some of that was kind of pushing me out because we didn't have a lot growing up. But the passion came later.
Wow.
And was able to do a bunch of different things before I found my thing.
Wow.
So.
Well, I know for me, this is like year 4 of me being in full-time entrepreneurship. And you got to have your muscles. I mean, it's a lot. So what would you tell the audience, that you've learned along the way that has been just, very influential, essential to your journey as an entrepreneur? What are some key things that you've had to put in place to be able to make it, really?
I think the first thing I think about is mastery.
Okay.
Oftentimes, when you're in early entrepreneurship stage, you're throwing everything against the wall to see what sticks.
Right.
And I went through those stages myself. When I really focused on something and really decided this is what I'm going to do, and I put all my energy into learning everything I could, which is all things energy efficiency, and specifically LED lighting, which is such a weird thing to get into, right? But I would say that's when things really changed for me. That's when I started hitting those 7-figure and 8-figure revenues.
Wow.
Because I was focused, and I spent a lot of time in China. I spent a lot of time reading. I spent a lot of time in laboratories, really learning everything I could about LED lighting. So I think the first thing I would really focus on is mastery. Being absolutely excellent and better than anybody else in a particular space. And I think a lot of emerging entrepreneurs sometimes kind of hop around and try different things. And believe me,
it's like a juggling act.
Yeah. And so I think if we can just laser-like focus, and it's a hard thing to do, right?
Yeah.
With social media and all these things. And
it's like, I'll try that. I'll try this. I'll try that.
That's right. So I think mastery. Mastery is a thing that I think has set me apart and helped me to really make strides in my business.
Right.
And that way I was able to pass that value on to my customers when I really understood the entire landscape of energy efficiency and all the kind of nerdy stuff that goes with helping buildings perform better, through their better energy efficiency use.
Well, I love that you did that because I think that is key too, is taking the time to do the research. I mean, I love that you went to China. I mean, you were driven to be able to have the knowledge base that you needed in order to thrive, and I think sometimes we're so busy as entrepreneurs doing the juggling act that we don't have the time to research in depth, the areas that we feel we're being called to or pulled to. How did you know that that was where you wanted to go? Energy
I didn't.
efficiency.
It was really a weird path to get. Prior to that, in my early 30s and 20s, I was in nightclub management, and I was doing concerts and promotions around the country. So I was an entrepreneur, but kind of not. And then had a day job, and that day job. There were some opportunities that came along there with a hydrogen fuel cell startup that I was an operations director at.
Okay.
That really kind of steered me in the energy efficiency field. And we were going after this, multi-million dollar contract. It was like a $300 million contract to do lighting in South America for the World Games at the time before the Olympics in Brazil.
Okay.
And while those guys who were trying to make, hundreds of millions of dollars, I was like, man, we could do $1 million a month just understanding this energy efficiency and this emerging technology right here in our own backyard at the time was Chicago. And so part of it was the opportunity that pushed me there, and realizing what an emerging, and then I was really excited about lights, like it just, and lighting and of course, energy efficiency and sustainability. Just became a passion for me, but it wasn't something that I sought out to do. But when the opportunity came, I dove head in, if that makes sense.
That's great. That's great. Did you ever doubt yourself or want to give up?
Absolutely.
Kind of already knew the answer. But
Absolutely. I mean, first of all, being a big African American guy walking around China, sometimes I felt like Godzilla. No offense, but like it just felt silly. No, but I think
you were on a mission. You knew what you were there for.
No, there was a lot of starts and stops. So I mean, one of the things that we could tell entrepreneurs too is oftentimes how you start isn't how you end, right? So the first company that we started was called Advanced Custom Energy Solutions, ACES, and this is about 2012. And I founded that company with the former state budget director of Illinois.
Okay.
And we were going to kind of run after our natural kind of group of folks that we knew we could run after, him being the former budget director, me just being a pretty good salesperson and had decent contacts. And we thought we were going to take that company, to the moon.
Right.
And what ended up happening, we got bought out by a publicly traded company, which is fantastic, right? Like everybody's, but I realized like, oh man, I got a job.
Yeah.
Because when you get, go through a merger and acquisition, you get stocks and maybe some cash. And I was glad to be able to pay all the bills without coming out of my pocket anymore. But I realized I had a job, and I was like, that's not what I set out to do. And so had to make that shift and get back on the entrepreneurial saddle at that time. So I would say through all that, we had some ups and downs. I'll tell a funny story. If anybody remembers a company called Radio Shack. Okay.
Radio Shack.
So around 2013, we had this. We were in talks with Radio Shack. We had already done about 5 or 6 of their locations, and we were going to do this nationwide rollout to retrofit all their stores with LED lighting, and of course, upgrade their distribution centers.
Right.
And we had gone through a few of the sample installs at some different locations in the Chicagoland area. I was talking to the CFO on a regular basis, and we went bankrupt. I'm sorry, Radio Shack went bankrupt, and it really threw a monkey wrench in our plan. So so I think sometimes you'll get excited about a big deal, and you got to wait until that deal is done. I spent a whole lot on that Christmas party that year, leading up, thinking that we were going into a big year with Radio Shack. So shout out to Radio Shack, wherever you guys are, whoever.
Hey, Radio Shack.
I don't even know if they have a single store or if they're just all the way.
In business. Thanks for connecting with us today. Nikki Speaks Therapy is a platform that focuses on sharing tips, tools, and strategies to help you have a healthier and happier life. Follow us at NikkiSpeaksTherapy.com to stay up to date on all Nikki Speaks events. I'm so glad you're here. I want to kind of transition into money. I was going to say, let's talk about money and the relationship that you have to have with money, or that you should have with money being an entrepreneur. What do you think?
Well, that's a great question. I think that, all of us come from different backgrounds, right? For me, I grew up in extreme poverty. And so,
Tell us a little bit about your story.
well, my mother was mentally ill.
Okay.
She would be in and out of hospitals. That would mean that we were in foster care
Okay.
oftentimes until she would kind of get well. Usually after every baby, she would have to be hospitalized for some time until her medication was balanced back out and everything.
Okay.
And so, and of course, she was a beautiful woman. She had kind of attracted the wrong kind of people. But her relationship with money was poor. And of course, it was Social Security and food stamps and all that kind of stuff. And so I think that already for me brought a level of uncertainty and doubt. And I watched my mother when she would get a windfall, usually thousands of dollars from back Social Security from the time she would be hospitalized, and then she would blow it. Right.
Oh,
Like, I
okay.
mean, she would spoil us a little bit and then go on some trip or do something. And pretty soon there was no money again. And we went to everything from soup kitchens at churches and stuff. So I think now sometimes that motivates you, right? Like, I'm never going to be broke.
Right.
But you
Right.
still have a behavior that you bring with you that's inherited. And so I think I had to
That conditioning.
unlearn that conditioning from being not having a good relationship with money. And as I've grown and talked to different investors and different people that have mentored me, I've learned to, first of all, respect the money. Right? It doesn't make you, of course, but we have to respect it. We have to save and do all those things that we're told to do. Often one of the best adages I've heard from an investor was, when you're broke, you think about how to get money. Once you have money, you think about how to keep it.
Right.
And so when we approach investors or when we approach, folks that we want to invest in us, remember that they want to keep their money.
Right. You have to
And
give
they
them a
worked
reason
hard to
not
get
to.
it.
Yeah.
Right. So, but I think just understanding how we feel about money, how we feel about debt, right? Because for many, debt is a perfect way to raise more funds, right? And people are absolutely comfortable with that. And I've had to become comfortable with that because early on, I wanted to keep everything and I didn't want to be in debt to anybody because, oh my goodness, if I'm in debt, I'm going to be, like where I came from. And so I think, as we grow and understand our relationship with money, it's important to think about those things.
Lucas, what would you say your passion is? Why do you do the things that you do? Why do you work so hard? Why have you been at this for so long?
Well, I think for me, going back to that relationship, for me, it was breaking that multi-generational cycle.
Love
And
that.
so, I read a book a long time ago by Napoleon Hill called
Oh, I love that.
17 Keys to Success, which is another one of his really renowned books. And the first chapter is about definiteness of purpose. And some people, now we call it your why, right?
Right.
But that was, almost 100 years ago when he talked about that. And so for me, it was breaking that multi-generational poverty, but it wasn't just a poverty of money, right? It was also mental health poverty. It was also physical health poverty. It was also the real, so trying to leave a legacy, I think, is what pushes me out of bed those days that I don't feel like going or getting out of bed, right? As we all have sometimes. It's understanding that I want to be the one in my family to break through, and so far
It's
it's been
happening.
working. Yeah.
Did you ever hit rock bottom? And if
Oh,
so, how did you bounce back?
well, I've hit a couple of different bottoms. I don't know if they're rock, right? So I will say I'll share a recent story. So
Okay.
in 2020, many folks had, suffered in their
The
business,
pandemic.
right? During the pandemic, I had a little bit of foresight and a little bit of fortune and blessing to be able to see this scenario. And as I discussed, I've been trading with China for almost 20 years.
Wow.
So when the pandemic hit, prior to that, I was reaching out to my suppliers saying, hey, I'd placed a few large LED orders. How are those going on? So I was talking to China in December of 19, January of 20, and watching how the pandemic was taking shape there and how it was affecting their ability to ship goods over.
Wow.
So me and another guy who was my friend Andy Gojan, who was sitting, in a hotel because he has a factory in Malaysia and a factory in China.
Okay.
And he was trying to, he couldn't go home. And so we had a lot of hours on the phone, and we were able to talk about what can we do. And we started importing masks and gloves and other PPE, medical equipment during the pandemic.
Right.
And, frankly, I did over $22 million in sales.
Wow. Just with that pivot.
Just with that pivot. And it was fantastic. And your boy was on a big, big high, right? And because I didn't go into it trying to figure out how am I going to make millions of dollars.
Right.
I pivoted with the thought on how can I make sure this small group of people that rely on me for a paycheck, how can I keep them working?
Right.
So it wasn't that I was trying to, I was trying to make, try to make some cash during a tough time. And this is before EIDL or PPP. Right. And honestly, if I had waited that long, we wouldn't have made it. So fast forward to towards the end of 2020, one bad deal, one group that didn't perform for us set me back because, 22 million in revenue at very tight margins, 10, 15% margins on most of those deals. So one bad deal of tune to 2.5 million set me back pretty bad because not only I had to go in my own pocket, take out some loans to fulfill that order that didn't work out. And most of 2021, my tail was tucked. I felt defeated. Right. I felt wiped out. I couldn't believe that happened. And even though this vendor failed us,
right,
I couldn't help but question my own judgment or, how everything went down, especially priding myself as somebody who is better at sourcing than anybody I know, right? I mean, I really, and I was able to, fly plane loads of PPE in during the pandemic and take care of all these state and federal government, customers. And so that really, really rocked me. And I think what I learned during that process, I could say not clinically, but for sure I was depressed, and for sure I was beat up. And after a few months of that, I realized that I wasn't doing the same things that I was doing when I was successful. I didn't go through my morning routine. I wasn't working out. So my first 10 minutes of my day always start out with prayer.
Okay.
I do about 3 minutes or so of prayer, 3 minutes or so of thanksgiving, just being thankful for everything I'm in, and then 3 minutes of focus and visualization on what my day should look like.
Love that.
And I actually got that from Tony Robbins. So I wish I could say it was mine, but I learned that from Tony Robbins years ago. But I modified it a little bit, I will say. But I realized that when I got out of habit, and then of course, some of the first things I would do every day was, read something inspirational or watch a video. I do a lot of YouTube videos and just, have a lot of people that I like to watch on YouTube.
Anybody in particular that comes to mind?
Everybody from Eric Thomas to Tony Robbins. Those are two of my favorites that I listen to. Most recently, Ed Milet. Really, and then of course, even if it's just stuff for business or for some of the other things that I'm involved in, I would do something to pour into myself, and then of course go on my morning walk or jog. And so I realized that all of that had fallen by the wayside. So by the middle of 2021, I dug myself out of debt and kind of in the business. We were still able to do a few $1 million in business in 2021, but it was a really tough time. So long answer to a short question, but
I love it.
I think, it was a time that I had to really realize who I was.
Right.
And after taking such a gut shot, not taking it personal,
Right.
right? Because
That piece.
right,
So easy to, to beat yourself up
yeah.
during that.
Hi, I am Lucas Michael Payne, and I want you to earn your first $1 million in business. I'm here to help you do it. I've been very successful over my career, and I want to help emerging entrepreneurs and those who are just starting out or those who are ready to leave their jobs and make sure that you are on the right track. Please join me soon in Frisco, Texas, where we will be doing an all-day seminar to help entrepreneurs and emerging entrepreneurs or people that are ready to jump out there earn their first $1 million in business. You can find me at lucasmichaelpayne.com.
I always talk about inner dialogue, and you kind of hit on that when you
Mhm.
were saying some of the things that you were thinking, how did this happen, and all of that.
Mhm.
I feel like you have to, at some point, switch it, and that's when you
Mhm.
said you realized that you hadn't been doing your routine and so
Mhm.
forth. Is there any change in what you said to yourself that got you over the hump too? I can do this, I believe, was there scriptures, was there a grounding statement that you believe that you said that allowed you to keep going?
When you do better, it gets better, right? And that's
Okay.
my friend Terrell Knighton here in the Dallas area. But it was things like that
Okay.
that helped. Of course, scripture. Of course, just remembering times. Like I shared with you that I had a very tough upbringing, right?
Right.
Foster homes and all kinds of just terrible things that went on in my childhood.
Mhm.
So I had to pull from the fact. And I think that's what we got to remember when we go through something tough. Just look back. You've been through things before.
Mhm.
And so if you can remember that you've been through things before,
Right.
and that this isn't, yes, this hurts. Yes,
Yeah.
this is bad, but I got it in me.
Right.
And I think that's
Right.
when I started to
Perseverance.
get my fight back.
Right.
But when you're in the middle of it, it's hard, and it's easy to pay lip service to it.
Yeah, especially when money's involved.
Yeah, when money,
You gotta
because
eat
money
and-
is so it's such a tremendous thing, right? Because we've built up a certain lifestyle that we're used to living, or we invest so much of our time and energy. 16 hours of the day. For most of us entrepreneurs, it's not 8 hours.
Right.
It's most of our waking hours that were developed or devoted to something. So when things don't go well, and of course, I have a lot of people. I have employees. I have people that really count on me, and
Right.
so that can be a big weight.
Right.
But you have to get your fight back.
Get your fight back. I love that.
Mm.
Now, I know you help people. You
Mhm.
help a lot of entrepreneurs. What would you say to someone that's new to entrepreneurship or has been an entrepreneur for a while
Mhm.
and needs some motivation, needs some
Mhm.
encouragement, needs some stepping stones?
Okay, well, a
Advice.
couple things. First, to hit on a few things. First of all, I don't believe in motivation.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
Motivation will not get you through. I know we need to feel good. I know you want to feel great, but the reality is it's habits. And I talked about that. Those habits
did.
that will get you through the tough times. Because if you have good habits, it doesn't matter how motivated you are. You are not going to be motivated every morning to get out of bed. You are
That's a
not
good
going
point.
to be. And so if you focus on habits and focus on getting through those things, whether it's habits to take care of yourself, whether it's habits to do work and put a certain amount of work in every day, those habits will get you through tough times. And I lost sight of that for a few months in 2021, right? The habits are the game changers, and good habits will sustain you. I think another thing for emerging entrepreneurs, especially in this market, the folks who I really want to work with are those people that are they've quit their job, or they're ready to quit their job. They're six-figure earners. There is a lot of ambiguity in entrepreneurship. So I think being ready to understand that there's going to be things that that are going to change.
Right.
And just like I talked about my business, where we were able to, we thought we were going in a certain direction. We got acquired. Which was great, but then it really shifted the dynamic. Now I'm reporting to people I'm in Park Avenue in New York who have no idea what I do, because we were just kind of one little company of many that they had acquired.
Right.
And it was a different dynamic. And is that where I wanted to be? being able to shift, like during the pandemic, right? Where you sought out to do one thing and then something else happened.
Something else comes forward. What would you, if you speak to the audience and you tell a person that potential client that wants to work with you, what would you say to them?
Well,
Why work with you? Why Lucas Michael Payne?
So, in terms of my commercial real estate clients, they all know that we do a fantastic job because we have a command of all things energy efficiency, right? So that's Force Energy Group. And for our supply clients Force Medical Supply has kind of merged into just global supply chain. And for Force Medical Group, or I'm sorry, Force Medical Supply, it's just working with somebody that can speak Chinese. Now, I don't speak Chinese, but I understand how to work in this international market. And what I am going to do, and kind of what you're hitting on, is if you go to Lucas Michael Payne, we're going to be working with about 10 clients a year to just help them go from 0 to $1 million. I really want to help folks get to their first $1 million in revenue. Most businesses operate at about a 20 to 25% net margin. And so for me, that means $250,000 of income for those business owners, right? And again, all businesses are different and they have different revenue models, but I really want to help folks achieve their first $1 million in revenue and be able to keep at least $250,000 of that,
That
right?
would be nice.
On a per annum. And so especially for the folks that are used to making, six figures in the public sector or, going to work for private companies, helping them, make that transition to entrepreneurship, because a lot of times they don't know their numbers, right? And so that's what Hustle App is all about as well, is helping people to understand how much stuff costs and what your billable hours should be. You should know what your hourly rate to do anything should be. And just even like you setting up for your shows, right? You have prep time.
Right.
You have, or when you're setting up for therapy sessions, you have time before that hour that you engage with your clients.
Right.
You have time after that hour that you engage with your clients. So what is your true hourly rate, right? And making sure that you're paying yourself or accounting for that. A lot of times emerging entrepreneurs forget that you might need 6 months to a year's worth of living income saved up, because a lot of times
where were you 4 years ago?
Right. Well, if you build it, they will come. And oftentimes we think that that's how business is going to go.
That's true.
But it just doesn't always happen.
So
There's
many
delays in construction. There's delays in getting stuff off the ground. There's delays in getting those first checks in, right? And we don't anticipate all that. So that's another thing I would tell any of you entrepreneurs, is really make sure you have a strong cushion, no less than 3 months of spending, and radically reduce all the extras, right? Because if you've been making a 6-figure income or more, you're used to a certain lifestyle. And if but if you're not willing to get out, cut that Netflix bill and start, cutting the going out to eat every day, 2 meals a day.
Starbucks?
Even Starbucks, you might have to cut that back just in order to make sure that you're ready to live a lean lifestyle until you're able to make it.
Right. I was talking to you at the Cowboys headquarters one day, and I remember you saying something that just stuck with me. It's like haunting me, but in a good way. And it's how many hours am I willing to give myself for my passion and what I want to do and I see myself doing? And would I give myself 40 hours a week? And I think that's so crucial and important to a person that is working for someone else, to make that transition in their mind. It's like, okay, I'll give 40 hours a week to this company, but will I give it to myself? And what does that look like, right? I mean, am I going to make the calls? Am I going to go and, sell myself and all these different things? So tell the audience a little bit about what you meant by that statement.
Yeah, I think oftentimes when you're in a job situation, like Nikki said, you're doing, 50, 60 hours sometimes for corporate. But are you willing to give yourself those hours? Are you willing, if you're transitioning from your job to an entrepreneurial passion, that means that you're going to give an extra 20 or 30 hours a week on top of the 40 or 50 that you're giving full time. right? And so I think that, you deserve it, right?
Yes.
But again, we're talking about a lot of work.
Right.
And then when you do attack entrepreneurship, sometimes we get, oh, I opened up this restaurant, so I'm a boss now. No, I was in the nightlife industry very early in my career, and one of the managers who I still look up to, Dino Villapita, who owns restaurants and bars in Chicago now,
Okay.
but he was a manager then. And Dino was the kind of guy that if a toilet was clogged, he was the first one to unclog it. When you take an ownership mentality, that means everything that goes on in your business is on you.
It's more than a title.
And so it's not showing up. It's not showing up, at 9 when your employees were there at 5. I mean, it'll be great to get there,
Right.
but no one should beat you in or out. When you're starting your business,
Wow.
you should be the first one in, the last one out. And then you're truly a business owner when you can go on a 30-day vacation, as Robert
Right.
Kiyosaki taught us, right? Then you're at business owner level. But in the meantime, you're self-employed. If you take
Right.
yourself out of the equation, you don't have a business anymore.
Wow.
Right. And so when you get to that business owner status, and that's kind of the threshold, if you can't take 30 days off, you don't own a business. But what do you need to do to build up to that point?
Right.
Right.
Let's talk about self-confidence and faith, because I think those are two essential key factors that kind of can play into your success as well. So what would you say?
Well, I absolutely have to, I have a relationship with God, and I talk to him every day. So for me, faith is a big part of anything that I'm able to do. And again, even faith overcomes motivation, because to that point, you could spend all kinds of time in the belly of a whale, right? And so things don't look good. So you have to believe that they're going to get better.
Right.
And so I think having a faith-based attitude, and that starts out with gratitude, not to make a rhyme, but that's the truth. Like if you have an attitude of gratitude and a faith that things will work out, that things will prevail, that you have the skills, that you have the ability, and that God has your back,
Right.
you will get through those things.
Right.
So.
I love that. What if you have a naysayer or someone in your ear that's in close proximity, maybe a family member, a loved one, a spouse, someone you're in a relationship with that you're partnered with, and you cannot, and they don't necessarily believe in what you're believing in for yourself?
So for me, as a husband in my situation, I know when my wife met me, I was still in that transition from, I had a job because I was the vice president of this company I founded, right? But and of course, but I was ready to transition back in. And I don't think she was a naysayer, but I think it was important for me, when you're in a relationship, it's important to understand the stress, again, because of the relationship with money, that thing can cause, right? So I assured her that I wouldn't skip a beat, that the bills would get paid the same way, that because I had planned for that, right?
Okay.
So I could say for me personally, that was one thing that I was able to do. Now, I don't do naysayers in close proximity.
Okay.
Okay, so that's the other thing. My wife
Okay.
was not a naysayer. So and you have to really have that
circle.
conversation. Yeah, really choose your circle and have that conversation, because we can't do naysayers close to us. There's, whether you call it crabs in the bucket or whatever the mentality is, but when people don't want you to succeed, those aren't the people that I want close to me. Now, of course, we can't choose our family members and some, but we can choose our friends, and we can choose how we interact with those family members too, right?
True. So boundaries.
I have very strong boundaries with certain family members who are stuck in certain places that we just can't speak on certain levels.
Right.
Doesn't mean I love them any less. Doesn't mean I won't be there for them in whatever capacity I can be there for them. But I don't do naysayers. And I think it's really important that you get a group of cheerleaders, group of people that are pumping you up, people that want to see you succeed, people that are happy, people that are jumping up and down when they see you score. Those are the type of people that you need to surround yourself with. And if you're in a intimate or close relationship with somebody who doesn't want to see you succeed, as much as I want relationships and particularly marriages to stay together,
Mm-hmm.
we need some help. We need some counseling. We need to probably get on your couch
Right.
if somebody isn't, you know what I mean,
Yeah.
really there
Yes.
for you, because it's important for your mental health, for your ability to get up and fight every day, that people aren't in your close proximity that are not really want to see you
Not
be
really
successful.
for you. Right. So as we close,
Mhm.
so we leave no stone unturned.
Yes.
What would you like to leave with the audience in terms of who you are and what you want for them, for people that are like you? Maybe they came from a background that was a tough situation. They were able to, they're at the point where they've made some success, but they see more for them than they've been able to attract or have. What would you say?
Just don't stop believing. Really focus. Do everything you can to understand that you are not what happened to you. You are not where you come from, but you have, every day that you wake up, you have an opportunity to take on the world. So believe in yourself.
Love that. Love that. Okay, tell them how to find you, how to work with you, how
Okay.
to be inspired by you. I've looked at your Instagram, and you have just great content with lots and lots of tips. So
Sure.
I'll
So-
say that little plug there too.
Well, I appreciate it. So LucasMichaelPayne is .com is the website, and you can find me on all social media platforms at LucasMichaelPayne.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much for joining us
Thank
today.
you for having
I
me.
appreciate it. Thank you guys for joining Nikki Speaks TV today. We'll see you next time. I hope you enjoyed it. Bye-bye. Thank you all for joining my show today on Nikki Speaks TV, the Relationships Series. Follow me on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and Twitter. Don't forget to like and subscribe on YouTube, or you can visit me at nikkispeakstherapy.com. See you next time.